Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. So, I was about ready to start recording today's video, after spending an hour or two going through all of your emails and replay submissions, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'll just watch one more. And this was it. And after watching it, I thought to myself, well, that's it, this is the one. No question about it. And hopefully, by the end of the video, you'll understand why. So, what do we have here? This is St. Dasa in the Shinonome, Japanese Tier 6 Reward Destroyer, and this is a Tier 8 battle. The only way to get your hands on the Shinonome is by completing one of the two starter campaigns in World of Warships. It's not the first one, the Science of Victory, it's the slightly more difficult, what's it called? Honourable Service campaign. The Science of Victory campaign is very, very easy and easily doable. The Honourable Service campaign is only slightly more difficult, and honestly, it's really just a question of how long it's going to take you to complete it. For certain of the missions, you will require a Tier 8, 9 or 10 ship, but again, that's just a matter of time. And upon completing the campaign, you will be rewarded with this Tier 6, technically a premium destroyer. The thing about the Shinonome is that these campaigns were put into the game when the Fubuki, bear with me here, this is going to make sense, when the Fubuki was a Tier 8 destroyer. So what you have here in the Shinonome is what used to be the Tier 8 Fubuki before the Japanese destroyer split in its stock hull configuration, which means it gets 3 turrets, 2 guns per turret, and is completely helpless against aircraft because its sole anti-aircraft defence consists of a single machine gun mount with a 1.2 kilometre range and, wait for it, 2 damage per second. Yes, it really is that bad, so you may as well just do what St. Dasa has done, turn them off at the beginning of the game and forget they exist, because to all intents and purposes, they don't. Now, despite the Shinonomi's excellent stealth, more on that in a moment, you can straight away see exactly why St. Dasa did not want to push the cap circle this early in the game. Because the enemy Scania, I don't know, whatever you call that thing, has made the exact error that St. Dasa did not want. Oh, shit. I guess he's going to have to go out and buy some detonation flags now that he can't farm them with achievements anymore. No, we're never going to let that one go. Yeah. When you're spotted and you push into a cap circle like that, in front of an island, there is nowhere for you to go other than closer to whoever is spotting you. You cannot fall back, and you're just broadsiding yourself up against the island. Meanwhile, St. Dasa, amply demonstrating one of the big drawbacks of the Shinonome, its absolutely terrible handling. She's got a big turning circle and a very sluggish rudder. I mean, it's not terrible manoeuvrability, but it's definitely not good, and she has a very sluggish top speed of only 35 knots as well. The ship, despite its sluggish handling, will actually outturn its turrets. Yes, these are your typical Japanese 127mm destroyer turrets. It takes a full 30 seconds for these things to rotate 180 degrees, which is terrible. However, the shells themselves, particularly the high explosive shells, are pretty good. And you can probably expect, with all 6 of these guns, to do 3,000 damage to an enemy destroyer if you catch them unawares. You are probably not going to win a gunfight with an enemy destroyer, however, unless you start the fight when they're already on low health, because you have a terrible reload. And the range is bad as well, only 9 kilometres, although this can be seen as a good thing, because it does mean that if you do use the guns, you will only be spotted by any enemy ships who are within 9 kilometres of you. The stealth, I did say we'd get back to that, and this is a perfect demonstration, is pretty good. St. Dasa saw that the Hipper over there was coming perilously close to the Shinonomi's 6.1 kilometre surface detection range, which is why he used the smoke screen. 6.1 kilometre stealth is the best you can get on the Shinonome, with some kind of camo skin, and of course the concealment expert skill. And this is one of the reasons why Tier 6 destroyers tend to suffer when they get up-tiered against Tier 8 destroyers. Because while Tier 8 destroyers do tend to have slightly higher base detection range, they can also equip a camo skin, have the concealment expert skill on the captain, and they also get access to the concealment modification. Ships like the Tier 8 Benson, for example, which is the first American destroyer that's actually capable of lowering its concealment below 6 kilometers. Actually, Jingles, I think you're going to find that the Tier 2 US Navy destroyer, the USS Sampson, has a base detection range of only 5.94 kilometers. Jingles? So, like I was saying, the first American destroyer to be able to get its surface detection range down to less than 6 kilometers. 6.1 kilometers on the Shinanomi is pretty good though, and that in combination with its torpedoes, which have a range of 8 kilometers and thus can be stealth fired, is probably this destroyer's biggest strength, and the torpedoes themselves are in fact pretty good. Oh dear. Yeah, that's going to hurt. There's 2. And I think there's going to be another 2. It's only going to take 1. Yep. The torpedoes do around about 14,600 damage, I think, although obviously they're going to do less against battleships, where you can probably expect 8,000 damage per hit thanks to a battleship's torpedo damage reduction, and maybe 10 to 12,000 damage on a cruiser, depending on the cruiser's torpedo damage reduction. But that's still fairly hard hitting. And they're not that slow either. I mean, they're not particularly fast, but they have a speed of 63 knots, which is okay. The best thing about these torpedoes, however, is probably their reload. They have a base reload of only 73 seconds, and you can obviously improve that even further by taking the Tier 3 Destroyer Captain skill, Fill the Tubes, which increases that by 10%. And if you've taken damage, you'll also see a reload speed increase via the Adrenaline Rush skill. So in practice, what you're actually looking at is a 1-minute reload on these very respectable torpedoes. I'm just going to pause proceedings here and take a moment just to see what's going on. St. Dassa's team are more than 600 points ahead. They have all 3 of the capture circles. They have not suffered a single casualty. They've managed to sink 4 enemy ships, including all but 1 of the enemy team's destroyers. Let's just allow that to sink in for a few seconds. Now ask yourself the question, what could possibly go wrong? And so it begins. Yes, kids, we are going to have ourselves a throw of biblical proportions. As well as the Belfast 43, they just lost their carrier. Somehow, that Fubuki managed to get through all of these guys. No, I don't get it either. Although getting past the Normandy, who the Fubuki just sank with some spare torpedoes, was not difficult because he's been AFK the entire time. Actually, let's just let that sink in for a few seconds as well. St. Dassa's team were 600 points up with all 3 of the caps, 4 kills to nothing, and they were down a battleship the whole time. Well, they do still have all 3 of the caps, but they're no longer 4 kills and 600 points up. There's still more than 12 minutes of this battle to go, however, and the Fubuki, who just eliminated the carrier and the Normandy, is probably going to die because he's got a Leningrad on his ass. But it's here where you're going to start seeing St. Dassa displaying some masterful management of his surface detection range, while struggling with the horrible handling of the Shinanomi as well. Oh, the friendly Vladivostok, who apparently has not been keeping up with events, is attempting to farm some detonation flags, so that's a kill for the enemy Lexington. Meanwhile, St. Dassa, he's being pressured from all sides here, desperately trying to remain undetected. Was forced to deploy his torpedoes against the Bowin Amagi. He does get 2 hits, but it's only 13,000 damage. 14,600 potential damage from each torpedo, 2 hits. Unfortunately, the Amagi, with the final hull upgrade, does get very, very good torpedo damage reduction. The good news is that the Leningrad, as expected, has caught and killed the Fubuki, but the Fubuki's probably not too upset by that. He has done extremely well. He's bagged himself a battleship and an aircraft carrier. Unfortunately for St. Dassa's team, that's not all that the Fubuki's done. He also managed to set the Leningrad on fire and has sunk him too. So, 3 kills for the enemy Fubuki, which is also a Tier 6 destroyer in this Tier 8 battle. And I do feel it's important that we acknowledge when somebody on the enemy team has done well, because all too often it's far too easy to simply complain about how much our team sucks when we're getting our asses whooped, without acknowledging good work done by the enemy team. Although I think it's also worth pointing out, as St. Dassa skirts this island as close as he dares in order to avoid getting spotted by the Yamagi he's just launched torpedoes against, that his team are not actually getting their asses whooped. There's just been an exchange of kills. The number of kills are still even. The team does still control all 3 of the caps, and they're still 500 points ahead. Those torpedoes on the Yamagi are looking fairly good. That's going to be 2 hits? Maybe 3. No, it's going to be 2. It's not quite enough to sink the Yamagi. Do you want to risk shooting? No, you don't. Look at his position on the map. He's effectively surrounded by enemy ships. And while these guns are probably capable of doing 3,000 damage in a single salvo against an enemy destroyer, you're not going to do that to a battleship. Plus, those 2 torpedo hits did not cause flooding, so even if he had opened fire with the intention of setting a fire on the Yamagi, probably wouldn't have happened because these guns only have a 7% chance of setting a fire on target, and even if it had worked, the Yamagi would have just damage controlled it. Plus, opening fire would have gotten him spotted by all of these guys. And that would have been bad. And when you're only 150 points away from winning, this is not the time to start throwing ships away on the faint hope of setting a fire that might kill a target. All of the enemy ships are on this side of the map. St. Dassa's team just have to hold on. It doesn't even matter if that Kansas starts contesting the cap circle at Charlie, the enemy team can have it. As long as the team hold on to Alpha and Bravo, they're going to win. Richelieu is shooting at the Zara. Oh wow, less than 1,000 health. It looks like the Zara is actually being smart though. He's not shooting back. And he's deployed his exhaust smoke and is just getting the hell out of there while laying torpedoes behind him. Looks like the enemy carrier is going for the Alba. May, however, be in a position to spot the Zara once the exhaust smoke expires, and it looks like the exhaust smoke is expiring. There's a North Carolina over there, though. He doesn't have a broadside to shoot at the Richelieu, and he's missed most of his shots, but he did at least some damage. Unfortunately, the Richelieu, with the team at 943 points and seconds away from winning. The Hipper finishes off the Alba from across the map. The Zara's exhaust smoke generator dies. He did land 1 torpedo on the Richelieu, but he's still inside visual range. The Richelieu takes him out. And so in the space of about 30 seconds, the team have gone from being about 30 seconds away from winning, with the kills even, and in possession of all 3 of the caps, to down to about 870 points, 2 kills down, and the enemy team have flipped 1 capper in the process of taking another. Up ahead, it's North Carolina versus Richie Lulu, and neither of them are really giving broadside to each other. The friendly Alba who just died is reporting in chat that he did score a permanent flood on the Richelieu, so my bad, it was his torpedoes and not the Zara's. And the North Carolina does have a reasonably significant health advantage as they go into this duel. So while St. Dassa smokes up in an effort to help out, he's just noticed that his RPF indicator has flipped from the Richelieu to somebody behind him, which means the Richelieu is no longer the closest ship, and he can't see who's behind him because he's in smoke. And given that there is an Admiral Hipper, probably very close by, and German Hydro is very, very good, he's correctly surmised that it's a really good time to get out of that smoke screen. Now check this out. The Richelieu was 7.4 kilometers away when he suddenly became not the closest enemy ship. The Yamagi and the Kansas are further away than that, which means that whoever is close is probably right on the other side of that smoke screen. So St. Dassa dumps his torpedoes right through the smoke screen towards the channel between the islands on the other side of it, and then proceeds to get the hell out of there. Somehow the Richelieu is still not dead because the North Carolina isn't firing high explosive at him in order to double down on the damage over time caused by the Alba's flood. And there's the Kansas, who was not the closest ship to St. Dassa before when RPF flipped, but does appear to be the closest ship now, which means that there's at least 1 enemy ship unaccounted for, probably the Hipper. And while those torpedoes were not aimed at the Kansas, he has managed to hit him with 2 of them, but again, no flood. So getting quite desperate now, he starts shooting. And there's a fire. Unfortunately, the Kansas is not dumb enough to extinguish a single fire. Speaking of fires, guess who just got himself burnt down? The North Carolina somehow managed to lose the fight with the Richelieu, despite the Richelieu starting with a 25% health deficit over the North Carolina, despite the fact that the North Carolina is a way better ship than the Richelieu. Even though they are both Tier 8 battleships, the Richelieu couldn't hit the side of a bomb from the inside, and the Richelieu started that fight with a permanent flood inflicted by the Auber. Despite all of that, the North Carolina still somehow managed to find a way to lose, which means that St. Dassa's team, with the loss of the North Carolina, went from 939 points back down to 885. And they're outnumbered 2-1. But, well, they are still 400 points ahead. And they're back over 900 points again because they still hold one of the cap circles. And they're still the only team with a destroyer. The only thing is, the enemy team still have a carrier. And St. Dassa's anti-aircraft guns consist of a single machine gun mount. So, if they're going to have a prayer of winning this match, they need to take out the enemy carrier, stop dying, and hold on to that last cap circle. And just as I say it, the Lexington torpedoes the Akatsuki, and somebody starts flipping the final cap. But they can still do this. I mean, yeah, they've gone back down below 900 points again. But hey, look, there's a kill, which puts them back up over 900 points. And alright, they are losing the final cap. But the Akatsuki, who got screwed by the enemy Lexington, who's been playing a good game, by the way, I do have to give credit where credit's due, there he is, he did at least manage to get his torpedoes away. The Akatsuki, not the Lexington. I mean, the Lexington did. It was his torpedoes that sank the Akatsuki. You get what I'm talking about. The Akatsuki sank the enemy Amagi, so they're back up to 953 points. And while St. Dassa is flipping the cap here at Charlie, he's never going to be allowed to get away with that, because there's a carrier right next to him. And even if he hadn't been momentarily spotted on one of those few occasions where he has been spotted in this game, it's fairly obvious that he's the one flipping the cap, because the Alabama up to the north, spotted by rocket attack planes, is clearly not in a position to be flipping anything. St. Dassa must kill this carrier. It's the only way he's going to stand a chance of winning. The Lexington, who's already proven quite adept at sinking destroyers with his torpedoes, has another go. Despite his very sluggish manoeuvring, St. Dassa is able to avoid the first torpedo drop. But the manoeuvring has left him slow, and with his engine knocked out, and yeah, basically everything knocked out, there was no way he was going to avoid the second torpedo drop. But his own torpedoes were on the mark, and he has managed to sink the Lexington. Which means they're back up to 953 points. They're not gaining any points because they don't have any of the cap circles anymore. But they do still have a 400-point lead, and I don't think you can make up a 400-point difference in 3 minutes, even if you do have all three of the caps. So what this Alabama should be doing right now, well, first he should be killing the Hipper. And then he should be turning around and getting the hell out of there, because no, he's shooting at the Colorado? The Colorado's heading away from you, dude. You're giving broadside to him as well. That is not smart. Why are you not shooting the Hipper? I mean, it wouldn't be enough to win. The Hipper's only worth 35 points. It's a cruiser. But the Hipper's also the only thing on the enemy team that's fast enough or in a position to catch you. And all you have to do is stay alive and run the clock out. Just turn around. The Colorado is never going to catch you. The Richelieu might, but it's too far away. Shoot the Hipper. Turn around, then turn around, get the island between you and the Colorado so it's no longer spotting you for the Richelieu, who is currently hosing you down with high explosive. Oh, you're not going to do that, are you? No, of course he isn't. I mean, if he did, this wouldn't be a game of throws, would it? And while it is kind of horrifying to see a Tier 6 destroyer in a Tier 8 battle doing 200,000 damage and getting 4 kills and it's still not being enough to win, it's not really fair to put all of that on the Alabama. I mean, yeah, if he'd made the right decision at the end, he could have still turned the game around. But in order to get to the position where it was all down to the Alabama, a whole bunch of his teammates had to make some pretty serious errors of judgment, and a whole bunch of players on the enemy team had to do extremely well. And a whole bunch of them did. The Fubuki, the Hipper, the Lexington, and the Richelieu, all definitely worthy of praise. Meanwhile, on St. Dassa's team, with the exception of him, The Akatsuki and the Auber, yeah, not so much. Either way, when it's two of the tier 6s and a tier 7 who are the ones at the top of the scoreboard in a tier 8 battle, that's rarely a good sign. So it's hardly surprising that 200,000 damage and 4 kills in a tier 8 battle in a tier 6 destroyer wasn't enough to carry this one. That's it for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.